Right. Just checking that, of course, everybody's important. I was just checking the most important person was here. So, thanks to people who've joined the Policy Development Co-ordinator room. We are not expecting the other candidate, and Gayfer is otherwise occupied. So send her apologies for this meeting. So Hannah's here, which is great. Good to see. Hope you're doing okay, Hannah. Hope everyone else is doing okay. We don't have a load of questions ready up and in advance, but we've got a few people who haven't joined the room yet. So, but there's enough people here to have a conversation. So I suggest, Hannah, that we start with you just giving an intro, relaxed about how long you take, just for let people know a little bit about who you are, why you're standing for this role, and with a particular sort of idea of why queer Greens should support you in this role. Over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, I'm Hannah, and I also go by Lumen. My pronouns are they or any is fine. And obviously, staying for Policy Development Coordinator role. I've been working on Policy Development Committee for over a year and a half now, and I've worked with a lot of the policy working groups. I've kind of seen a lot of the process, how it works, how it could be improved. I am a software engineer by day, I guess, or whatever time of night sometimes. And I work on various types of products, and I'm working for Gusto at the moment, and I work for I basically I design code that is for a wide range of people. And one of the things that's important to me is making sure that what I work on is inclusive and represents the people that use it. So that's one of the things I kind of bring to the role in the Green Party as well. And I also like to make sure that the tech we use also works for us. And that's one thing that has been a bit of a struggle with policy development as well. So yeah, I think for me, I've worked a lot in advocacy as well, and inclusion and accessibility in tech and outside of tech as well. And I just think that if I were in the policy coordinator role, I would be able to support making sure that the process is inclusive, that everyone understands it, and that everyone is able to be represented and be involved. And I think that's probably the most important things that matter to me. I will also say I have got a bit of a headache, so I'm going to do my best. And I'm actually quite a morning person. So yeah, apologies if I'm not at my best right now. But
Thanks,
yeah,
Hannah.
thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks for the intro. Good to hear from you. Kay, do you want to ask you a question, or would you like me to ask it for you?
You please.
Okay. Hannah, how important do you think supporting PWG's policy working groups is in the role? And do you think only policy working groups, and for example, not special interest groups, should be able to propose motions based on the current internal policy process?
Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to actually keep that up in front of me so I can remember all the parts of that question. So yeah, I think that part of the coordinator role, but definitely also part of the policy committee role, anyone on the committee should be there to support the policy working groups. And I think that part of the role is also about making sure that policy that is being written is being put out to members as soon as possible so that consultation can happen, and definitely that liberation groups and special interest groups are involved in that process from really early on. There are lots of ways to write policy. You don't just have to be part of what's called a policy working group. You can write policy as an individual, you can write policy as a local party. There are just loads of ways to get involved. And for sure, my perspective of our process is that liberation groups can also write policy and put it forward in the same way as is in the Constitution, is kind of in the standing orders as well. I think that there are a lot of aspects of how we do things that need to be more clearly communicated, and people need to be aware of that process, and we need to make sure that internally we also are very clear on what that process looks like. So I think that's something that we really need to be really strong on in the next year or two and really make sure that that comes through. Hopefully that answered the question enough.
Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful. And if anyone else has any questions, put them in the chat or put your hand up. By all means, please do. I'm going to ask. I will abuse the chair, if you will, and ask a couple of my own, which are just kind of interest really. One of the things, I've only been a member since February last year, so I've been in other political organisations before, but I've not been a member of the Green Party for well, I've only been a member of the Green Party for a year and a half, and I also hear this from other I guess, well, long-standing and more recent members as well. Policy is hard work in the Green Party. It's hard to make policy. It's hard to change policy. We have policies that have been around for a long time, and even if they were suitable at the time, they're not suitable now. Some of them may be a little bit ropey. We had a bit of a kerfuffle, didn't we, around just before the election about a policy of discouraging encouraging home births. I can't remember. No, discouraging cesareans. I think it was. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that sounded like it had been done. And we still have some sort of pro population control type stuff in some old policy as well. How do we fix all of that?
How do we fix all of that? That's a big question.
It is a very big question. So any small parts of that is, what kinds of things can be done to, either in the position you're standing on or standing for the development committee more widely, or members more widely, can help to shift, at least so that members feel a bit more like there's a bit more of a dynamic process for policy.
Yeah. So as far as I understand, the coordinator role is part of the role is quite explicit that the coordinator needs to review the policies and make sure that they are up to date. We have to do things like making sure that we archive stuff that's really old and not actually being used, but that we've still got the record, for example. So when we do bring in new policy, we've still got a record of stuff that's kind of come before, and we need to kind of be clear where there are gaps. And obviously there's a part of the process is making sure that the right policy gets into the manifesto, for example, and that is a collaborative process, and it's kind of across different parts of the party. I mean, again, like, I work in technology where we have to audit things a lot. We have to kind of go through and make sure that we've got the right things that we need, that they're just check what things need updating or need maintaining, need a bit more attention. And that is part of it is kind of built into a very regular workflow, let's say. And I think we need to build that in a bit more to what we do in policy as well. So we need to make sure that we're doing that regularly and not kind of trying to do it all at once as well. Because I think what happens a lot, and I can see it in lots of areas of the party, where we're kind of reactive. We're doing the work on the ground, like we're out campaigning or we're responding to a by-election. We're doing whatever it is that's kind of being thrown at us, and we really need to be able to have that long-term picture as well, and make sure that we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves and getting the processes in place. So yeah, I just think doing little and often and making sure that we are auditing things regularly and communicating with the right people and getting the right people in the room is a really important part of that. And the last thing I would say is that it's also about communication and getting people on board and outreach, because obviously there are a lot of members who can contribute to that process and who can be part of it. And we need to make sure that we're engaging people as much as possible and getting more hands on deck, essentially, and just getting people involved so that we can get through, let's say, the work that needs doing. And I think there are a lot of willing people around to get that done.
Thanks. Again, anyone wants to ask a question, put your hand up, stick it in the chat. But I will carry on because I can. Okay. Chris, you just put something in the chat. Shall I read that one out? Happy to, and then we'll go to Miles. So I know it might not be an LGBTIQA plus specific policy, but we seem to be one of the most progressive parts of the Green Party. What's your personal views, Hannah, on the outdated Green Party policy specifically relating to nuclear energy, especially relating to delinking nuclear energy to nuclear weapons proliferation? And if you don't have a personal view, how would you go about facilitating that sort of conversation?
Okay. Personal view is that I don't think I know enough to have a really solid view on this. I see some issues with the connection between nuclear weapons and nuclear energy. And a lot of that is a kind of social and cultural issue. And I think that's an area you have to be quite mindful of when you write policy I think it's kind of part of the question as well, kind of making sure that it's not linked. And I think a lot of that comes down to how we communicate our policy and making sure that it is clear and making sure that when people read it, it's not, for example, too academic or it doesn't go. So you get that balance where what we're putting out there, what we get in our manifesto, for example, and what we're getting when we're talking to people when we're door knocking, that is really clear, that we're not supportive of, for example, nuclear weapons, but we might be supportive of nuclear energy. So part of that is about how we communicate and how we write policy. I've gone on a slight tangent, but I want to just continue on it because I think that there's one thing that our policy development process needs, and that's real clarity around what good policy looks like. So how it's written, we don't have anything like a real guide as to how to write the policy, how much detail to go into, how little detail, and where all of that stuff kind of belongs as well when people do need to have a look at what research has gone into it. So what we do is just kind of what we've always done and what we kind of know we've done, rather than it being really codified. And I think we need it on paper. We need it to be kind of guidelines about how to write good policy. So I think that would help. The other thing that is obviously in the question, what I think is also really important for me personally is not to have a personal view. I think in the past, we've had quite a lot of coordinators who do have areas of policy that mean a lot to them. And sometimes I think that it means that our policies become a bit unbalanced, where we end up with more support or more attention around certain policies rather than other policies. And that's not, it doesn't allow for an equitable, fair and representative policy development process. So for me, it's about putting the policy writing really in the hands of the members and experts who want to be part of that and who have that real experience and specialism and interest. I wouldn't want to be there with my own opinions kind of being part of writing the policy or anything like that. So I think that's really important to me.
Thanks. Miles, do you want to ask your question?
Hi. Tried to put the light on so you can see me, but it hasn't worked. I don't know whether it's this breakout room or the other breakout room which this question would be best in, but basically I'm on the district council and kind of there's some bits like policies where we're the 4-day working week like has been discussed like within the staff, and that isn't actually what they want to do. So we aren't kind of promoting that policy. But with other things, there's kind of national policy that it'd be quite good to get into district and council level, but that does kind of mean writing it for like figuring out how to get it from kind of like national policy to policy which will work at a council. And some places are really good at it, and then and they do need a certain amount of local knowledge to know what will work as motions. But yeah, is there anything kind of about how to join up the dots, basically?
Thanks.
Thanks, Miles. I think that's a really great question. So I actually forgot to mention in the beginning, I know we usually do, oh, we're from X local party. I'm from the Brighton and Hove Green Party. I'm actually membership secretary for Brighton and Hove Green Party. Have been, it's almost been a year now, just coming up to our AGM soon. So I've also had quite a lot of, been doing quite a lot in local party politics as well. And I've noticed that people in the local party don't, like a lot of people don't really engage with national policy. And we see that with councillors and also with members. And we've kind of thought about how to improve that process locally. I've also seen there have been a lot of local parties who have reached out to Policy Development Committee and have sort of said, oh, we want to get this policy written locally, or this particular thing is happening locally, and we need to know a bit more about our policy around this topic. And one thing that we do sometimes is we kind of go and do a talk, and we say, okay, well, this is what our national policy is, and this is how you can get involved with national policy. And I do think we need to do more on that side of things. So I think it's good for us to kind of talk about what happens on national. I think it's also like, I absolutely come from a kind of grassroots activism perspective, and I feel like what's happening locally is really, really important. And that's where we build momentum. That's where we really come together. That's where we can get a lot of excitement going and really do a lot of the activity, like I said, knocking on doors or even social media, that kind of thing. And I think that local topics are going to be really important in the next year or two, and they always are. So just to answer the question a bit more directly, I think we need to have more visibility nationally around what's happening in local parties. So what the most important topics are, and what kind of policies are going to be important for them. So that could just look like regular communication with local parties, maybe a call or a visit or whatever it is. It could be even having a spreadsheet that people can enter information into, which sounds really boring, but that just having that admin there to allow people to say, oh, this is what we're doing locally, this is what we need to do. And just creating a network of people as well, and knowing who is active locally or where we might have gaps that we can try and fill, and do the outreach to make sure that we do connect those dots. I think there are a lot of ways of kind of trying to solve that problem, but I definitely think it is something for us to kind of think about and potentially work together on. And if anyone has any ideas on that side of things as well, I'd be really interested to know.
Brilliant, thanks. Thanks for the question, Miles, and thanks, Hannah, for the answer. And again, anyone's got any other questions, stick your hand up or put them in the chat. Just wondering, Hannah, I think one of the things that came up, I don't know if I think you weren't in that earlier part of the meeting, but one of the candidates in the E&D conversation was talking about wanting to take away the disability chapter, if you like, because because all of those policies should be embedded everywhere in everything that we do, so that that all of our policies are fully inclusive in every sense. And I'm not sure exactly, you know, how far you'd go. One might go with that, but as a concept, how does that sound to you? I'm just
Yeah, loads of people have just joined the room. Hello, people have just joined. Are we still in a breakout room? Just to check
We are
before
still in the
I
breakout
answer
room,
that,
yeah.
Chris.
So the other meeting has the other breakout room's finished. So I said, you know, well, if you want to come in for the last bit over here, then join in by all means. Then we can, you know, more people can hear your closing as well. So, but yeah, so I was just wondering, you know, on that question of, you know, getting rid of the disability chapter and making sure it's embedded everywhere. How does that, you know, seem like as an idea to you?
Yeah. So I love that question, and it's great because there's a couple of things now. I want to just tell you a little bit about at the moment what we've got, and I think this is great just before I kind of launch into this, but we've got a lot of groups who work really, really, really hard on their policy. And I would say most of the ones that I've worked with, or a lot of the ones that I've worked with, have said, okay, our policy is really important and it kind of spans loads of different topics and it should be embedded across different topics. So, you know, we've got finance economy, we've got health, we've got I'm trying to think of some of the others that have just kind of that there is an overlap in a lot of our policies. And we've got ways of dealing with that, and we kind of talk, you know, we'll refer back to other parts of our policy and we'll say, oh, well, this is, you can go and have a look at this bit of the policy, and I'm going to reference it in you know, the health policy will reference the disability policy, for example. And that's one way to kind of have that cross-reference and have that link together. Now, I've kind of thought about this quite a lot over the last year, and I do think that we need to redo or like look at how we can approach the different areas of policy and make sure that they really reflect what they need to. So at the moment, the categories that we've got might not be the best ones. I don't have an answer to that right now in terms of what it would look like, but I think we could do a lot to kind of reorganize all of our policies so that it makes a bit more sense to people when they're just going on our website and kind of looking at the policies, or when they're asking people, oh, what's the policy on this area? I think that's going to take a bit of time to figure out. So I think that's one part of my answer. And I will just put the other part of my answer is that, yes, I think inclusion and diversity and representation needs to be across all of the policies. And that is potentially partly about training. It's also about making sure that policy working groups know what inclusive policy looks like. So when we're talking about having guides or templates and those kind of things, we need to have those tools available so that one of the other big things is being an anti-racist party. Like, we need to make sure that we've got the right terminology, that we've got the right understanding of what inclusion and representation looks like across all policies, so that when someone is working on their kind of area that can be quite niche and specific, they still have a guide to knowing the right language and the right way to approach it so it is inclusive. Same with disability, and I do think that's really important. So I think those are two parts of the same kind of what we need to be doing to make policy better and be more representative and inclusive.
Thanks. So I'm just going to sort of merge a couple of things from the chat. Really, Chris is asking about communication, how we communicate our policy effectively, how do we use it better at elections. Sometimes we seem a bit ashamed of some of our policy. Some of our policy, this is me now, my editorial, but we do have, as I said earlier, some of those policies that have been around a long time that maybe we should be a little bit ashamed of. But also, Chris mentions, can you work with the IT team to make the policies easier to access for party members and members of the public? And Gray says yes. Actually, one of the things that attracted him to voting attracted them, sorry, Gray, to voting Green for the first time was being able to read all the party's policies on the website. And that isn't something that's available to everyone at the moment, I don't think. How will you make that all work perfectly?
I'll just wave a magic wand. Yeah, there's a lot there. So first of all, our policies are supposed to be public. They are not currently public because there was some inconsistency with what we know was passed at conference and what we know our policies are compared to what was on the website. Basically, the website got a bit outdated. Our tech is a big issue. And yes, I have supported the digital team as much as I possibly can in the last year and a half that I've been on the Policy Development Committee, and I will continue to do that. I do think we need more funding for technical support. I think we need more people who can write code as well. At the moment, we've got some great people who do digital support, but they can't necessarily like build a website. We can also look at working with other like organizations, charities, and places that are happy to offer support to actually build stuff for us, even for free. And that's something we've done before and we can do again. So I think that's an option. And I'm just trying to remember all parts of that question. So, okay. Yes. So I think that the other part that's kind of standing out to me is just that thing about communication and making sure that we're effective. Like, yeah, one of the things is being able to find it. That is a big thing. We need to make sure the search works. We need to be able to make sure that it's coming up when people are going on search engines. We also need to make sure that we have things like almost like a help sheet or like an info sheet. This is a condensed version of the policy. You can read more here, just with almost like bullet points or whatever it is, just getting it out there to local parties for campaigns, our social media and everything. Like, we can get our policies much more widely known and get them out there much more effectively. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Brilliant. Thanks. Finally, because we're coming close to time, do you want to just wrap up and just give us a little summing up and tell us to vote for you.
Okay. So I haven't actually, I did not think about this in advance at all. So yeah, as I said before, my name's Hannah. I also go by Lumen. I use they, them pronouns, or any are fine. And I am really excited about what we can be doing with policy. And I know a lot of people might find policy boring, and I want to change that. I want to make policy exciting. I want people to know what our policies are about. I want people to want to get involved, and I want people to be able to easily find our policies. And I want our policies and our policy process to be inclusive and representative of our communities. And that's something that I think I have the skills to do, because I have worked a lot with communities and I do a lot of things around like system design and working with people, workshopping things and making sure that the right people are in the room, connecting people and empowering people from a grassroots perspective as well, to really be part of the conversation and getting things done. So yeah, I think that you should all vote for me as Policy Development Coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Thanks for coming along. Thanks to everyone who joined us in this breakout room. I'm going to stop recording now, and